Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here. Rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, our first item today is a public hearing on the Sharpshooter deer culling program. Mr. Lauer.
The purpose of this public hearing tonight is to take testimony from the public with regard to the proposed Sharpshooter deer calling program, the hope of which is to provide council with additional information that it may need to be able to make a decision with regard to this. As council's aware, the township staff has been authorized to make application to participate in that program, but there has not yet been a commitment made by the township to actually implement that program. I don't know whether Chief Grimes might have a few words to say to open the hearing.
Good evening and thank you. Just very briefly to reiterate the intention of the program and how we intended to fulfill the obligations of that program. We submitted the permit to the Game Commission for review. It's passed the first step process, I believe. Is that inaccurate?
The Bureau of Wildlife Management, our biologist reviewed it and approved it. I also approved it. So it's.
If you're going to speak, you need to come.
Okay. Yeah, come on up. So this is Dan Sittler. He's here tonight just to give you some information as to where that is in the process. Go ahead, sir, if you want to address that.
I received the application, I believe, last Thursday. It had already been reviewed by our biologists and approved on their end. It meets the conditions of the permit application, and I reviewed also the permit application as far as in regards to our regulations, and it follows the regulations and requirements needed for the application.
You are, sir?
Dan Sittler, State Game Warden for Northern Washington County.
I wasn't being rude. I just wanted to.
No problem, sir.
So that gets us to the position where we would be able to initiate a program, correct? Is there another step of approval for that, or is that the final step?
So there's two other approvals. My supervisor in Ligonier out of our regional office will approve it, and then it goes to our Harrisburg office, and it will go to our chief, who is in charge of permits, and his approval also.
If once that is completed, we would have the go-ahead to go ahead and start this should you elect to permit this method of deer calling to advance. As it stands, the way the program would be structured would be to use bait at specific locations that are determined to be safe locations for the use of firearms, and by using the bait to bring the deer in and then take the deer quickly and humanely with a rifle.
And is this
with designated hunter personnel?
And
yes, sir.
is this, Chief, is this only done during regular hunting season, or is this year-round? Or
No, it would be done in February, March timeframe.
So the permit, the way it's laid out for a political subdivision, will follow from February 1st until September 30th. There can be an extension, but that would have to also go through approval up to our executive director.
so this is a one-time thing then? Or do you have, if you want to do it again the following year, do you have to apply again?
Yes, reapplication each year.
All right.
So is this concurrent with archery, or is this a secondary program with archery?
So archery in Peters Township usually begins mid-September.
Right.
Okay, and it pretty much lasts until right before Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving. And then we have our 2 weeks of rifle season. And then it comes back in starting the day after Christmas, or this year will be the 27th of December. And that goes until, I believe, the 3rd week of January.
So each program will run, but it'll be happening separate from the other.
They would be independent of each other, yes, ma'am.
And the archery program kind of sets the stage for this program to be for us to be able to get into this program. If we can show that we have more deer than we think or that enough deer that it's problematic, which is what we're seeing with deer-to-car collisions and some other issues that we've talked about in the past, this program is the next step in managing the deer herd.
I think you've covered this before, but I've had a few questions from people. When we harvest the deer, they're then butchered. Do we pay for butchering, or is that donated, or how does that occur?
We do
The
pay for the
township pays.
butchering.
So that's part of the cost that you projected for us?
Yes, ma'am.
And then second, that meat is not given to the hunter, but is donated?
Hunters for harvest.
Hunters for Harvest, and what organizations usually benefit from that?
I can answer that question. So there's a few of our butchers here locally in Washington County, the closest one being Lennox Butcher in Finleyville. He's a member of Hunters Sharing the Harvest. Hunters Sharing the Harvest is a statewide program with butchers, whether they opt in it or not. All the meat is processed, and then it is given out to either needy families or to organizations such as Washington City Mission, where they use that meat to feed homeless or needy families that come there for dinner.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any other questions from the audience? Ronnie?
Questions for us, or you just want to speak?
Questions for you, but I've got to speak to the microphone.
Yep.
Ron Books, 855 Bebot Road. Before I make my comments about how I feel on this issue, I do have some questions. And that is, very simply boils down to this. Why is it that I need to use 2 police officers to do this hunt? I mean, we're short on police officers, as I understand it. We've been told we want to try and get 3 more at it. Yet we can give these guys over 100 hours to go hunting?
Could I correct one thing? There hasn't been a request for additional police officers.
Well, we know that that's coming. Let's be honest.
How is it we know that, Ron?
Because it's actually in some of the budget information that was handed out.
For other reasons, okay.
I read it.
Not for this, though.
So in regards to
Yeah, please.
in regards to using the police officers, the alternative is to hire a company,
No,
which is much more expensive.
no. You also have individuals within the community who could qualify to do the hunting.
Not for this program.
Why?
Liability.
Liability, okay. All right, that gets me to the next question. If there is an accident, what happens? Are we covered under insurance? Or are we going to go with qualified immunity? Or if all that fails, we could always go with the Alec Baldwin.
I'm not going to address that.
No, I'm serious. How is this going to be covered under insurance?
Well, this would be one more program offered by the township that we would be covered by our insurance policy.
Are
But
we
that
sure we're
doesn't-
covered?
But that does not mean that an attorney, I can't tell you what the defense is that an attorney would put forward, so.
Right. Now, I do know of some individuals in this township and in surrounding communities who are very qualified to do this type of shooting, exceedingly qualified. They're qualified at the National Rifle Association level of qualified marksmen, sharpshooters, and masters, high masters. So they meet more than standard requirements. We couldn't use them?
That's not the proposal.
I know, but why? They'll hunt for nothing.
I can answer.
They'll even
I can answer
process the
part of that
deer.
question.
Okay.
Well, please.
Under Section 147 of 325, A permittee or sub-permittee who engages in the taking of deer shall first apply for and receive a nuisance wildlife control operator permit, according to our Chapter 147, Subchapter T relating to nuisance wildlife control, and also have the deer control permit in conjunction with that. So that's what qualifies them as shooters for deer.
So
But
you're
anyone,
So can you clarify, that's not normally issued to an individual?
That is not normally issued to an individual.
Why?
Who is it issued to?
It's issued to individuals who've met those requirements.
those requirements
And
being?
typically, it is either through a political subdivision, because there's other political subdivisions in Pennsylvania that do use their police department as their sharpshooters. But it is, they have to first apply for and receive that nuisance control permit, and then additionally, the deer control permit. So other individuals who have the nuisance control permit can apply for the deer control permit and apply for, or be hired in conjunction with this type of program. But it's not a free-for-all for any person in Pennsylvania just to come in and shoot without that permit.
No, they'd have to be recognized, correct?
They would have to have the permit.
By the township or the municipality?
The permit would have to be through the Game Commission.
Through the Game Commission, but they could still apply. I mean, there are communities out there that do not have police forces.
That's up to the political subdivisions of
Okay,
how they
all right.
handle that.
So they could handle it. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Can I have all of your names?
State Game Warden Dan Sittler,
How do you spell?
S-I-T-L-E.
Ellicott?
Chief Douglas Grimes, Grimes.
And sir?
Ron Brooks, B-O-O-C-K-S.
Thank you.
I'm going to sit down because it's to get tested.
You grew up in 111?
Excuse me?
You grew up in 111?
Sure.
No.
Okay.
I know a guy, Sittler, yeah, his dad was a state trooper.
You can see your hand up there, Joe.
Thanks. I'm Joe McLaughlin. I have a couple questions for these guys.
Come on back.
I don't think anybody is not aware that I think this is a goofy program. How many deer are we proposing to take?
There's no set number on what we're proposing to take. We expect to take somewhere in the area of 70 to 100.
How many deer are killed in a hunting season in Peters Township?
We don't have those numbers.
How many deer are killed by our farmers in Peters Township?
I can say roughly, there's one farmer that's been shooting, depends on what farm he shoots at, or they shoot at. On an annual basis, maybe 20 deer.
I talked to the butcher in New Eagle, and he said they had 70 off of Simmons Farm.
That's also another farm that they lease property off of, and the
Okay.
majority of those deer have come from that farm.
Okay, so most of our farmers shoot deer, right? Or hire someone to shoot deer that have that kind of permit you talked about?
There's one farmer that has an individual that does shoot deer.
Okay, so that's a private citizen handling himself on his farm.
That's under a different agricultural permit.
Okay, but it does do the job that you're trying to do also.
This is up to Peters Township.
Okay.
Apparently not as effective.
I read the stuff, the EQB, and it's old. I mean, the youngest information in here is 15 years old. Some of it goes back to 1980. This is a boilerplate piece of information that was just produced. There's been a lot of studies since then, I'm sure. So when they shoot these deer, do they target mostly female?
According to this, they do.
So through the permit, they can take regardless of age or sex. Primarily, though, during that time, it will be antlerless deer.
Okay, so when they're killing these antlerless deer that time of year, if they shoot a doe, they're more likely killing 2 deer with 1 shot, or 3 maybe.
I'm not going to get into speculation.
Well, that time of the
on
year, you're going to assume that they're pregnant, right?
They could.
More than likely.
That's a possibility, yes.
Okay. What happens to the hides and the horns?
Any antlers would be surrendered to us as well as hides.
Okay, so the Game Commission, I would assume, sells those or something to benefit.
No, we don't sell. There's,
The hides, they don't sell?
no.
These throw away?
Hides, they might get pennies on a dollar.
Okay. How many, does anybody know how many deer we had killed on the road in Peters Township?
Sergeant Jason Bernetti with the Peters Township Police. Last year, there was 91, or I'm sorry, 2020, there was 91 deer-related accidents in the township. Reported. That's the very low end of it. That's what we're made aware of. There's,
Yeah.
I
There's a lot that make it off the road.
there's a lot more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, those weren't all fatalities, right?
The
The 91, were they all, when I say the deer,
The deer,
They're all-
no. That's deer-related instance where we show up and there's evidence of a deer being involved. We don't count the deer ran out in the road and I swerved to do this type thing. If there's evidence of a deer strike, hair, or other things like that, that's counted towards that number. But no, they're not all fatal for the deer.
but we pay somebody to come pick up the carcasses, right? So somewhere we have a count of how many deer we picked up last year, right?
Yes.
The problem comes in there, we pay someone for the local streets, we've had, and PennDOT does the pickup for the state roads, and the state roads are historically where our high numbers are for crashes, so it's a difficult thing to get from PennDOT sometimes.
So, one more question, if you bear with me. So they shoot this deer and then they transport it to one of these butcher shops. So the same police officers take it from where it's killed to the processing plant?
Correct.
Okay. I think my main objection has always been that our archery program, I have a lot of hunters talk to me, and they want to get on that program, and the application process is vague and confusing and misleading, and people are told they can't get on it for years. And then when I look at the statistics, they're saying how many people weren't really getting anything, and maybe they should not have those same people. Maybe it should be made so there's more applicants and encouraged to do so. And again, this information from the EQB I found not to be very helpful, being that old. Thank you.
Chief Grimes, do we advertise for people to join the archery program?
Yeah, anyone that contacts us either through the police department or contacts the township, they're referred to the township website now for an application, or they could pick an application up at the police department. But our problem is not, it's becoming an issue of viable hunting properties. It's not an issue necessarily of the amount of hunters we have. We've just lost areas where we could hunt that we just don't have
Well, that's
anymore.
the reason the deer are all congregating in the residential areas.
That and along
All of
our
the
state
development.
roads and the major highways, and that's what's increasing our traffic. In a program like this, we see the sharpshooting end of it, we see as an opportunity to address those issues where there's not viable hunting areas around those heavily traveled roadways.
Okay, but I heard you say you don't actually advertise. There's nothing that says, oh, if you'd like to be considered.
We have advertised,
Okay.
and we've had people contact us, and I would say maybe a third of the people that contact the police department that are given instruction on how to participate don't. They don't go through with the process for one reason or another, but there's an application process, there's a background check. We require them to obtain bow hunter safety courses through the Game Commission, and I think a lot of hunters just opt out of doing all those things when they can just get their hunting license and go other places.
Thanks for explaining that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You indicated that there were 91 deer-related incidents, I guess, for lack of a better word. And what time frame is that?
That's for the year.
For this year,
That's for 2020, yes.
2020?
Yeah.
Do you know how many there are this year?
I don't
Do
offhand
you know
know
how many
this
there
year.
were in 19 or 18 or 17?
Yeah, 19 was 84, 17 was 73. We have the data from 2009 until then.
I
So
mean, does it seem like it's exponentially growing?
we started in 2009. We started out with 74 when we started the archery program. In looking at that data, we went down to 40 in 2012, and from 2012, it's continually climbed to where it is now, from 40 to 91 currently. So
So it's almost doubled in a decade.
it's growing, and
And is that because the archers aren't in a fixed location, or did you move them around the township?
I mean, there's only so many places we can put them. The township parks and
Isn't that
different.
what the police are going to do if we pass this?
Right.
They're only going to be in so many places, and the deer will just move someplace else, right?
Well, the objective is to get into those smaller places where we can't hunt and utilize sharpshooting in those places, along the 19 corridor, along East McMurray Road, along Valley Brook. We have map data over that time that kind of shows where the vehicle accidents are occurring, and it's all in areas where we don't have hunting locations.
You
for
have to
the
excuse
archery.
my lack of voice right now, but what's the criteria you guys are looking at for a viable piece of property that you're going to hunt?
The basically just a safe location to shoot, a safe backdrop. We're going to shoot from elevated positions and just ensure. I mean, it's just safety is our criteria.
I mean, that's kind of vague there. So, I mean, I'm looking for parcel size. You know, we have little sporadic.
Well, and that's the benefit of these permits, is that there's no requirement for parcel size. There's no requirement for safety zones as there is with hunting.
See, and I find that concerning of itself.
What do you mean by safety zones?
When,
So theoretically, you could shoot closer than, like, say, 200 feet of a structure?
correct. If you have that person's permission, correct.
So that's the point I was going to ask about. You're going to have to speak to the people on the property, alert them to when you expect to be there. The other point is you're planning to bait the deer.
Correct.
So you'll be putting whatever bait block or whatever you have to put out there. So people should be aware to stay out of the area? Is that
Everyone will be aware in the immediate area, and we utilize the bait to bring the deer where
Right.
we want them to the safest location.
Yeah,
So that's
I understand
kind of the
concept.
benefit. But yeah, people will be, anybody will be alerted.
What's the radius you're going to look at for alerting neighboring properties?
We usually notify each neighbor on either side.
What's the
What we
radius? Just adjacent properties.
it's property dependent, really. We don't have a specific radius. What we found so far is we're starting to get contacted by people, neighbors talk, and we're starting to get kind of blocks of people that are interested in participating, and we'll go out and look at all the properties kind of that run together and determine the safest spot and the most viable location to do that.
And you're shooting down.
Everything, and that's as I explained, that's our primary objective: shoot with a solid backdrop, and that's kind of the
So you're
benefit.
placing elevated platforms on these properties?
Tree stands,
Oh, okay.
decks, whatever, any kind of elevated position that we have.
If you've ever hit a deer, I hit one on Valley Brook a couple of years ago. That deer just took off. Damaged my car was over $3,500, which
And that's what we're just trying.
paid the deductible.
Right.
I have another question. Could you share with us some of the numbers that
Could you get to, Joe, could you go to the microphone?
Could you share with us some of the numbers that the archery hunters have taken in the past, I don't know, 5 years or so? To show that their success? Has it gone up? Has it gone down?
In the last 5 years, going backwards, 50 deer, 52 deer, 55 deer, 41 deer, 67 deer in the program.
Okay. And as Chief said, we don't have a target, even though I read in the paper the target was 100.
That's just a rough, that's the 125 would
Okay,
probably.
so if we're killing 60 deer and the farmers are killing 70 deer, and that's a low number, I don't think we're doing too bad.
We're not doing bad in the areas. If you look at our data, especially our crash data, and you talk about Simmons Farm,
There's a lot of houses around Simmons Farm.
Thomas Road has considerably less vehicle collisions than a lot of the roads around it, the water dams and everything else. And we could probably contribute that to the fact that they are shooting a considerable amount of deer in and along Thomas Road. And we do have maps from the last at least 6-7 years that show that stretch of Thomas Road by Simmons. Their deer management program is probably reducing our crashes in that area, but our area is not Thomas. Our areas are 19
And we're not even taking into account the legal deer that are taken into the township because we didn't have those numbers in rifle season or archery season.
Correct. Those numbers aren't and the crashes are still going up.
We got a lot of deer.
We got a lot of deer, right?
Okay, anything else? I think we beat this one to death. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify something. Chief, how many deer would you like to see taken in the program?
Through the Game Commission application, we applied for 100 to 125. In those specific areas where our crashes are.
I think you said 70, right?
Me personally, I'd be happy to see at least 70 in the program. I would consider that a success of the program.
Okay.
But the goal would be higher than that. Yeah.
All right. The goal would be higher, but you'd accept 70. Okay. The reason I bring that up is very simple. Since the inception of the program back in 2012, if I take the total number of deer that are advertised as having been culled and divided by the 12 years the program has been in operation, that's 70 deer annually. So we're already meeting that standard.
No. 70 in addition to what we're taking. We have to reduce the car deer collisions, the deer incidents.
So
This is 70 in addition to the
usual deer hunting done by individuals who apply to hunt and meet the standard as far as accuracy is concerned. They're going to continue hunting?
The archers?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Chief, can we get a copy of the application? You have that available?
That'd be great.
I don't have it with me.
I don't even know, whatever. Mr. Ball, I think there are other individuals in the audience who...
Yeah, does anybody else have a comment?
Hello, Blaze Hollett, 223 Trinity Drive. I'm here as Vice Chair with the EQB. On Tuesday, November the 9th, Peters Township Environmental Quality Board unanimously voted to support our local police department's plans to reduce the white-tailed deer population through a planned bait police sharpshooter program as outlined in the 1025 council meeting. Township's no longer the rural community that it was. Farm and forested land is increasingly becoming residential. Property that once offered safe hunting zones, they're no longer. Deer numbers remain high, as evidenced by the car deer collisions, landscape damage, undesired deer-human contact, like the deer that was impaled on the fence. Personally, in my backyard where I butt up with the woods there at the old high school, I cannot grow anything desirable. If I want it to grow, it's got to be fenced. The once successful archery program has lost half of its active shooters. The Game Commission agrees that the archer harvest alone will not reduce our deer population and enables the special rifle harvesting to reduce their herd numbers. We investigated a resident's claim that the hunting regulations would soon include the use of bait, and that such a program in itself would decrease herd numbers. We were not able to substantiate such a claim. Instead, we found a PA Game Commission study that showed no deer harvest benefits from the program that baited deer. The baiting regulations were discontinued after 2010. In addition, with personal conversation with Mr. Dan Sittler, our state game warden on November 9th, revealed no plans that the Game Commission was going to reinstitute such a program in the foreseeable future. The sharpshooter program go into effect, EQB offers the following recommendations. Assure that the sharpshooter shooters used in this program are Peters Township policemen and women. Define the number of deer to be harvested in the call. We need an objective. All deer killed would be donated to the hunters sharing the harvest, providing food for homeless. Bait used during the call be removed promptly when program objectives are reached, and also to assure proper signage is displayed to alert residents to stay clear of the call area and/or to wear blaze orange outerwear. Thank you.
Next, please.
Thanks, Blaine.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I second.
Any discussion in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Okay, moving onward, approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting of November 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the transcript of the public hearing held on November 8th.
Second.
Discussion.
One correction, please. There's a missing word on page 7, line 11. In my comment about property transfer taxes, the word "not" should be included, but that's really not reflected here. I sent that to Mr. Lauer before the meeting.
All right, moved and seconded as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Special reports, there are none. Audience comments on non-agenda items limited to 5 minutes. Are there any comments? Seeing none. Unfinished.
You spoke too soon, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, Ron Books, 855 Bebout. At the workshop, I believe that was 2 weeks ago or a week ago, somewhere in that time span. The issue discussed had to deal with the pool, the swimming pool. And Mr. Berquist gave us some statistics. I'm afraid I've got a little problem with some of the statistics that you brought up. Mr. Berquist, you told us that for the last 2 years, the pool at Upper St. Clair has paid for all of its operational costs?
That's what I was told.
Well, you were informed incorrectly, because last year during the pandemic,
The 2 years prior.
I'm sorry?
18 and 19.
Last year. This would be 20, during 20.
No, I'm saying my frame of reference was 2018 and 19.
No, you said last year and the year before, which in my mind was 20 and 19. We're arguing semantics here. The point I'm trying to make is there was no way that was able to break even last year as far as the operating costs because of the epidemic. They were closed down for the vast majority of the year. Also, as far as income goes, here's some startling information, at least in my mind. 40% of the people who are members at the Upper St. Clair Community Center and Sports Pavilion, whatever we choose to call it, they're from out of the township. So 40% of their membership is from out of township. Believe it or not, that 40% generates 60% of the income to that facility. 60%. Now, right now, because they offer, and I'm going to make it clear, is it the pool that generated this kind of income? No. No. The pool by itself would never have made expenses. This is what I'm told. It's the fact that they have a variety of other systems there, including weightlifting and exercise and jogging and basketball and. In other words, it's a full-service facility. That's how they're able to generate income. As a matter of fact, to their benefit, right now they have a $5 million surplus, which they hold aside in the event that they need to do some expansion or other programs. The reason they do it, again, I like to go back to the idea, we need to increase the size of the aquatic center and the park facilities. You're only going to be able to do it financially if you have the right numbers. And selling one product just to pull is not going to satisfy operating costs. At least that's the assessment that I've got at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All righty. Unfinished business, there is none. New business, first item, authorize the appropriate township official to execute a lease with the homeowners located on Mallard Drive.
So as you will recall at the last meeting, under miscellaneous, we had a discussion concerning Mallard Drive and its transfer to the township as a public road. That is not possible in a standard kind of way of accepting a right-of-way because of the nature of how that property is held and the roadway is held. So the alternative that was put forward by Mr. Smith and myself was to develop a lease and accept, in essence, take it into our public road system under the terms of a lease. When council discussed this at the last meeting, concern was expressed about the need for indemnification of the township if there in fact was a suit filed against the township as a result of this piece of property being leased to the township. Also, there was a request that the lease needed to be recorded so that in fact future owners would have effective notice of the conditions in the lease. In your docket, I circulated a copy of the lease as it was proposed. As of today, the attorney for the homeowners have suggested 3 modifications, 2 of which we believe do not present a problem, and those are found on page 4 of 9.
The hard copy is that?
It's the hard copy that was in front of your
Okay.
thing.
You'll see the red line strike through our language.
Yeah. The other change that they had proposed that Mr. Smith and I both believe is problematic is that on page 2, the 3rd paragraph that waives any and all claims for use and causes of action for trespass and similar claims against the township, they would like us to delete in any and all public users of Mallard Lane. But I have a problem with that from the standpoint that the intent is for this to be as any other public road. And, you know, if someone chooses to drive down Mallard Lane or walk on Mallard Lane, they should have free and unfettered access to that. And so I don't know how you would ever not, you know, have a situation where someone was on Mallard Lane and there would be a claim of trespass.
Their concern was the release being read too broadly, that they would give up any or waive any claim to any third party that might cause injury to their property or otherwise. But I believe the lease is tailored just to the use of the road. If you look at the language, the release is for trespass and similar claims or cause of action against those individuals. Essentially what we're writing is you can't stop them from using the road because if you recall, each portion of this roadway is in their front yard. So I think this is necessary language.
It is their front yard.
Yes,
not just that
it
it's in
is.
their front
Right,
yard.
which is unusual. So that way, we thought just to protect the citizens from, I don't know that they're even allowed to park there, but the use of the roadway, walking down the roadway. So there was language added. They struck it. We put it back in. Mr. Arcuri today, I don't think I sent that back over to you, but Paul did. So you see the language continue. But even from a legislative history standpoint, if this is ever looked upon, our purpose is not to release everybody that causes any problem on that road from liability to these homeowners. It's just that they are released from any claim that they're trespassing while on the roadway, essentially.
Well, to expand on that, just a clarification, we also, the sidewalks are remaining in responsibility of the homeowners, am I correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
So now they are responsible to clear them in the snow, clear them of snow or whatever.
And that would be true if this,
Right.
if this was in fact a public street,
Sure.
you know, as we have sidewalks in other plans, the homeowner are assumed, even though they're located in the right of way, the homeowner's responsible for the maintenance of that sidewalk or the clearing of that sidewalk?
And I suspect their HOA maintains those sidewalks.
Well, one way or the other. The point is, if now it is considered a public road and someone is walking there and falls and slips because it's not cleared, the liability goes back to the homeowner, not the township.
Well, I mean, the problem is they're not leasing that part. They're leasing the cartway, essentially.
Well, I guess.
But I can tell you this, Mrs. Merrill, if someone slips and falls on the sidewalk in any of our subdivisions, I won't tell you that the township won't get sued because we get sued for everything. I don't believe we have a liability there because we're not responsible for the maintenance.
We have a
sidewalks.
requirement that snow is removed from a sidewalk.
Yes.
And if that's not done, then the liability is on the person who the sidewalk's home is in front of.
I would agree with you.
That's
Normally,
true.
that's going to be the case.
But we'll get sued anyway.
We'll get sued anyway.
We'll get sued
Well, I
anyway, and then
understand
we'll...
that. I'm just saying the homeowners in this situation need to understand that liability. But no, none of this was discussed when this first came to us. We didn't even get into the whole issue that we might have a problem transferring the property.
You mean when this plan was first presented?
When they originally said, we'd like you to do this, and before they started doing all the work to bring it up to code.
That's true.
Well, and that's...
Nobody brought that up.
And I'll be honest, regardless of how this vote goes, if some other neighborhood ever comes in with a private road and makes this similar type of request in the future, and I will take partial blame for this because given my background, I should have asked you guys what the ownership situation was there, and had I known this, I would have told you guys we can't do this because we're setting a bad precedent here. I mean, I don't know, the next private lane set of owners who come in here and ask us to, lease their street, what reason do we have to say to them, well, we're not going to lease yours if we've entered into this lease agreement with the owners of Mallard Lane? And I'm going to vote to approve this tonight whenever it's motioned, but I'm telling you, the only reason I'm voting to approve it is I feel that we owe it to the residents of this neighborhood because they did everything we asked them to do.
Well, I think also this is fairly unique in that the road is deeded in their deed. I don't know that there's another place in the township that this exists. So another private road owners can come in and say, we want to dedicate this, we've met your standards, please take the road, and we would accept it. They can't do that. It's impossible for them to meet that standard. We've wrestled with that for a year because it's in each deed. And they'd have to redo all their deeds, they'd have to get all these releases. And so I think this is unique, and that's why the township has worked with their council to try to get this done, because this presents a very unique and unusual situation. I don't think you'll see it again like this. A private road otherwise would have to meet our specifications for dedication.
Yeah, we've changed our rules in subdivision and land development regulations since this development came in. They can't do it this way anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so what would happen in the new plan with a private road, it would be located in a 50-foot private right-of-way, so that in fact, if the township ever had to take it over, it would be there.
It wouldn't be this.
It wouldn't be, yeah.
Well, I have to agree with Mr. Kozer. I think if all of this was clearer in the very beginning, I would have probably felt no. But I agree that we have an obligation at this point in time because they have invested a significant amount of money to bring everything up to our standards. I'm concerned that council is going to have issues at some point in the future if any of those individuals decides to sell.
We did include in the signature line lot and blocks and addresses for each of the homeowners. Every one of them has to sign off. It's going to be recorded, and obviously even through the HOA law, they're going to have to provide that information to any potential buyers.
Will that create a cloud on the title?
I don't think it's a cloud, it's just a record.
Yeah, it's like an easement.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
so
Are we going to add notary pages to these? Because otherwise you're not going to be able to record.
Yeah, we're going to. The reason it's not like that, I think we have to work with their council because some of their individuals aren't here. So I believe we're going to we're talking about whether we need 30 separate notary pages and have them for their 30 signatories. So we're going to the end of this will look a little different from how that's going to be executed.
now, is there anyone here on the homeowner's behalf?
Who wants to
I see
talk?
some of the residents out here.
I just have a question. I can't see how we agree to striking that the first request they made on that third whereas. I think that has to stay in there. I personally don't have any problem with the paragraph 8 and paragraph
The
9.
release language?
Right. I don't-
Yeah, that's what we put
Yeah.
back in.
Right. I think it has to stay in. I guess my question is whether or not you're right that, Your Honor?
We're talking about the, on the trespass was on page 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's the case, then I'll make a motion to authorize the appropriate township officials to execute a lease with the homeowners of Mallard Lane. The lease agreement provided to us with the striking language stricken in paragraphs 8 and paragraph 9.
I'll second.
Discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey,
Okay.
and I've just been here long enough, when we've made decisions to do some of these things in the past that come back to haunt me. I probably won't be here when it's time for this to come back and haunt us, but I just don't think it's a proper precedent to set in the township.
Okay.
Can I ask this of council? Do you have a problem if for the next 30 days, we assume responsibility for plowing during snow events and giving them that 30 days to get these signatures in place?
No.
And if in fact they can get those signatures in place, then we can continue.
Only if it doesn't snow.
We're all hoping for that.
That's fine.
I don't care.
Now, heaven forbid there's an accident there, what's our insurer going to say?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think of that.
So we've got to get this executed.
Well, check with our insurer because, if one of our plow trucks ends up, taking out somebody's mailbox or something, or he takes out somebody's
I
car.
think the other thing we could do pretty quick is probably have the HOA execute the lease agreement with the township executing, and then get all the other signatories. So at least we have the authority. That gets you something.
As long as the insurance thinks so.
I'll check with the insurance company and we'll.
Yeah, because we've all approved it now, so it's just subject to execution. I don't think they'd have an issue, but just make sure.
It's been approved.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Our next item is ordinance levying a tax on the assessed value of real property located in Peters Township for 2022.
So, as discussed in the budget workshop, the 2022 operating budget does require a modest increase in the property tax levy. The proposed ordinance sets property tax levy at 1.7 mils in 2021. The millage rate was 1.622 mils. The 1.7 mils represents a levy of $1.70 on each $1,000 of property's assessed value. The increase represents 7.8 cents per thousand. So on an average home in Peters Township, that would be an increase annually in taxes of $25.74.
Move we adopt ordinance 872 establishing a tax levy of 1.7 mils on the assessed value of real property in Peters Township for 2022.
Second.
I have a question about that. In the budget message, are you guys comfortable that the assessed value as certified by the county is correct?
My guess is that the assessed value from the county is actually going to be lower. One of the things Peters Township does is it has an interim tax, and so that is the value as of right now. The value will continue to increase as properties get put on.
And that's what you base the budget off of?
What's that?
And that's what you base the budget off of, right?
Yes.
Okay, the math is not right. It's all like, it's $100,000.
We don't collect 100% of the tax.
No. One of the concerns I have, and I've voiced this through the workshops, so it's not news, is that even though this seems de minimis, to some people it is not de minimis. People are on fixed income. I think the other thing that we're not taking into account is the fact that we have very many housing developments in progress, building homes that aren't being taxed yet, but will be because they're under construction and somebody will be occupying them and paying the tax. So I think there's a certain amount of revenue that's sitting out there unaccounted for right now, and I wonder whether that would be enough to help forestall this kind of an increase, even though, as you said, to many people, it's considered de minimis. My concern is that there are a lot of people on fixed income. We have obviously seen the increases in cost of living. There are people, we're going to be increasing the garbage fee further on in the meeting. And there are people in the Peters Creek watershed who've been paying $15 extra a month for a bond issue to build a plant that isn't done yet. So you know how that goes. So my concern is, in addition to us adding potentially this in the school district, piling on, which they will continue to do, I feel that if we could hold off another year or two, based on the idea that there are homes out there that are going to be contributing to the property tax, maybe we can reduce this or forestall it. That's my...
As you will recall, when the township issued its bond in 2019, one of the things that I told council at that point in time, that to do so would increase debt service costs by about $300,000, and that would necessitate an increase of probably close to 1/10 of a mil. So this is less than that. And we have, in fact, been able in 2019, 2020, and 2021 to avoid that increase. But I don't think in good conscience that you can continue to do that, because I think what you're going to do is potentially compromise our ability to meet our ongoing operating and reoccurring capital expenses. And so I think this year is the time that needs to occur. And that's why I recommend it. I would never recommend a tax increase that I didn't think was needed.
Well, and I appreciate your pointing out the fact that this is something that we haven't done for a while. We haven't got to the operating and capital budget yet. And I'm wondering whether in that document, maybe we should take a step back and remove some of the things. I mean, right now, payroll for a 1-2 week period is over $1 million for the staff. I'm not saying that that's not money well spent, but there are ongoing expenses that we have. Maybe we need to look elsewhere to try to reduce some of the other ones. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm explaining myself to the rest of council. So you'll know why when I vote no.
Paul, the millage increase that you're proposing, I mean, what does that equate to in dollars and cents? What does it actually generate?
Oh,
5.6 or 5.5 million. Approximately.
yeah, but no, what he's asking, what's the increase generate?
You understand what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
It's like 300 and something thousand. What's
Less than that, but let me see if I can calculate it.
Or whatever.
I got about $234,000.
Yeah, I think it's actually a number slightly higher.
It is higher than that, but that's
probably about $250,000.
Yeah, My assumption's based on $3 billion worth of assessed valuation of property in Peters Township, which is slightly lower than what our assessed valuation is.
I think it's actually about $250,000.
I have some same concerns as increases payroll. I always have those concerns when everybody thinks, well, $25 isn't a lot of money or whatever, but and I do recognize that to some people it is, especially when you're going to add these other increases on. And I mean, I'm not going to vote not to approve the budget, but I'm going to begrudgingly vote to approve the budget because I don't think we have. It's at this late stage. I don't see where we have an issue. But I actually do think that we need to take a look at cutting some costs going forward, or coming up with another revenue source, and that might involve appealing some assessments of a certain block of sales, like the school districts have been doing in Washington County, above a certain amount, and they're using the sales price as opposed to some arbitrary figure that the county's coming up with.
Yes.
And I don't want to do that, but I mean,
in our history in Peters Township is that neither the school district or the township has appealed residential property assessments. We have defended assessments, but we have not appealed assessments.
I understand that. We don't, do we appeal, we don't appeal commercial ones?
We don't appeal, we defend.
We just defend.
We defend assessments.
Well, I'm not saying that we need to do that, but I mean, that's something that's certainly within our arsenal. And just because this is something that we've never done in the past doesn't mean that it would not be appropriate under certain circumstances going forward. I'm not saying that they exist, but I mean, I think that there are ways that we could be creative to either cut costs or you know, generate some additional income from, you know, various sources. I just don't know what they would be at this point in time. But I mean, I just think that it's ridiculous that, you know, we have to raise millage to get $250,000. I mean, we used to have a surplus fund or a fund that we never wanted to dip below. Don't we still have that?
And is to make sure that that is in place. There's $1 million.
Keeps our bond rating.
There's $1 million that's in the capital projects fund that is in essence there to handle unforeseen circumstances. So that in this budget that exists.
We've raised taxes $1 million in 20 years. Come on.
Really?
It's not very Republican.
No, I said my piece.
Okay, any other discussion? All right. Motion?
We already have one.
Yes, sir.
We had a
All right,
motion.
yeah, we did. Okay, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
2 nays?
Yes.
Okay,
The one begrudging.
And one begrudgingly.
Yeah, it's supposed to get that begrudging.
begrudging, okay. All right.
So is that a half of a vote?
I don't think what
Ordinance amending
2.5,
Chapter 195, Article 6, Peters Township Code of Ordinances, solid waste collection fees.
So we're entering the 4th year of a 5-year contract with Waste Management for the collection and disposal of garbage and recyclables. We are at a point where the fees that are being levied are not going to cover the cost of that contract or the collection of the bills. And so what is being suggested is that there be an increase in the garbage fees from $67 to $70 a quarter. This represents a $1 increase per month for that service.
How much are we short, Paul? Do you know?
Ballpark. It is
95,000.
Yeah, I was going to say it's
95,000. And how much is the township owed from the residents who don't pay their garbage bill? Do you know that number?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but it's more than the 95,000.
Sure.
And we do aggressively go about collecting that, but we are owed more than that.
Well, I mean, I don't know what we're doing to aggressively collect that. I mean,
We are leaning people's homes and executing on liens.
do we get interest on those liens? Do they?
Yes.
Do they? Is it 6% like the statutory interest rate?
Yeah, I believe it is, and the fees that are. No one wants to let the garbage bill go because it's not only the interest that's associated with it; it's the fees associated with that collection get passed on directly to the homeowner. So it's very expensive when you choose not to pay your garbage bill.
If we have people that don't pay, right, but they want some other service from the township, like they want a building permit, do we have the right to withhold that building permit?
We do not. The only way you can collect on this is at the time of sale.
Well, you could share sell the property.
Oh, no, and we do that. We lien properties and we post them for sheriff's sale.
Well, I think that people, the people that aren't paying, shame on them. I mean, they're penalizing the rest of their neighbors and residents, and that's not right.
I know a couple years.
We've posted homes for sheriff's sale over a certain amount. I forget what it was. Yeah. We didn't do, $300.
No, I understand that there was some cutoff, but and I think most people have pay when we get the push cover. But it shouldn't have to be that way.
Well, there's certain people that just won't pay until the fire's lit under them.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes the same thing for property tax,
Can we
too.
like make the fire department not show up at their house?
Can we post their names?
Or at least tell them we're going to do
It's,
that?
they're,
Like they do at Valley Brook, we post your name if you don't pay your bill.
they are posted actually every year for the docket for the reorg meeting. We get the list from Jordan Tax Service, so.
I was going to ask you that. That's what I thought we
Yes.
get was the beginning of the year. So
Yes.
next year, we need
Mr.
to, next year, we need to get, because that was a few years ago, we brought in a whole lot of money, as I recall, when we really got aggressive with that.
Electronic billboard right out here.
There you go.
And I will say, with the refis that happened, especially in 2020 and early this year, we did collect on several. I mean, the past 2 years for delinquent garbage fees have actually been pretty good with all of the refis on residential properties. I mean, you're probably looking at another 60,000 this year. Last year was about 60,000 as well.
We cut it down pretty well. At one point, it was horrendous.
It was like 300.
That was a lot for a while.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Lauer, can I ask a quick question? This $8,000 for additional containers, I presume is new homes? Is it for new homes, or are people getting second ones? Or?
No, nobody's getting second ones. It's new homes. It's also, on occasion, we have containers that are damaged beyond repair.
Okay, could I ask, I don't believe council's ever talked about potentially asking people to pay a deposit when they get the first one, that they would eventually get back if they move. Have we ever thought about that, which would cover some of that expense?
You got a grant to begin with.
Well, all the recycling containers that were purchased with the grant, the other containers were not. They were part, actually, the people being billed were paying for those. I think that would be a very cumbersome thing to administer, and I'm not sure whether there'd be a value. I don't think we have a problem with people taking their carts with them.
Okay.
They're generally in the home. I mean, one thing about the carts being as large as they are, they're not
Conducive to moving.
Yes.
Unless you load them
No,
with
you put a lot of
something.
clothes in them.
Seriously. I'm not, the problem with this is that Waste Management keeps raising the rates, so we're really at a disadvantage, and I'm not happy about this, but I will move that we approve Ordinance 873, increasing the quarterly fee for curbside garbage collection from $67 to $70, and rear yard collection from $83 to $88.
Second.
Other discussion?
And you have to realize that their equipment runs on diesel fuel, and if anybody runs a diesel, that's like over $4.
I think they're natural gas.
I was going to say, there's a lot of trucks
One in my
that say-
neighborhood is not, but there
There's a lot
probably
that
are
don't
some
go
of
into
them.
that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
All those in favor?
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, ordinance adopting 2022 Peters Township operating budget.
So this table will provide you a summary of the 2022 operating budget. As you can see, the revenues are greatly exceeded by the expenditures. That difference represents projects that are either under construction or proposed to be constructed with bond funds. So in the budget, it provides for the construction of both the aquatic center, the fire station, and also the acquisition of a fire truck. And that's how you get to that difference. The fact of the matter is, beyond that, the budget is actually balanced. As you would expect, the revenue sources for Peters Township aren't different than that of other municipalities. It is primarily funded with taxes, including real estate tax, earned income tax, and deed transfer taxes. In addition to that, there are substantial fees that are charged, and the bulk of those are related to garbage collection. So the grants that are shown there are, for the most part, grants that we receive on a regular basis, including the liquid fuels money, the money for foreign fire casualty insurance. So What is not in there is, and we'll talk about a little later, is the proposed grant from the state of Pennsylvania with regard to the pool. In terms of expenditures, this is a little bit skewed from what you would normally see, because normally what you would see is that public safety and public works make up the vast majority of the budget. The reason why the parks is as large as it is this includes the aquatic center, if in fact it gets built. So. And again, this is a breakdown of the budget in terms of capital expenditures, and what you see, the two primary things that you see is the under public safety is the proposed fire station number 3. Under the recreation, it's the Rolling Hills Aquatic Center. Public Works is slightly higher than what you would normally see, and it reflects the money that we're receiving under the American Rescue Plan, which is going to allow us to increase the amount of money that we spend upon storm sewers. It's also going to free up money so that we can, in fact, have an enhanced road paving program next year, which includes upgrading roads which have previously been classified as minimum maintenance roads. In terms of positions within the township, the budget does provide for additional staffing. There is one additional full-time position in the Public Works Department, as well as 2 part-time positions. Those part-time positions will likely be devoted principally to the park, and within the last contract, there was negotiated language that allows them to be used in a way that will enable the township to avoid overtime for work done on weekends in the park. There's an additional police officer in here, but that police officer is being fully funded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and is involved in the auto theft program. And then under general government, there's one additional position, and that position is for an additional assistant manager whose focus will be on human resources as well as project management. So that's kind of a summary of the budget. So it's my recommendation that the council adopt Ordinance 874 establishing the 2022 Peters Township operating budget. One thing that I should say so that we're all clear on this, although this provides a framework for moving ahead with the fire station and the aquatic center, it is not a commitment to do that, and it's going to take action by council next year to move those projects forward, because there would have to be bid awards, there would have to be authorization to go out and borrow funds, and none of that occurs without council taking additional action.
Okay, we've talked about these things a number of times. Are there additional questions or input?
Hey, Paul, one of the things I think I mentioned at the public hearing, you had made a comment that you challenged your department heads to look for ways of cost cutting. I'd asked them maybe we put into the summary that you provided. I didn't see it in there. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, and I actually went back and pulled that out. I think it's sitting up on my desk right now. So let me see if I can go through and give you some examples of the kind of things that we have done and intend to do. The HVAC project in the library that was completed this year, part of it was geared around energy efficiency, and what we're hearing from the mechanical engineer who designed that system is that we should see substantial decreases in the cost of heating and cooling that building. One of the things that the library is doing for next year, they have been undertaking a study of the use of the library and are looking at reducing the number of hours that the library is open as a way, in part, of matching up resources to need. And my guess is that early in 2022, you're going to get a report from the library as a result of what has happened there. One of the things that the Public Works Department has been doing as a way to reduce our costs of maintaining our buildings is they take over major projects each winter. The goal is, and we're negotiating right now over this, is to do this year to do work in this building that we would not that we would otherwise have to contract out, and that's a way that we're attempting to save money in the Public Works Department. I don't know. Do you recollect what?
The fire department took over. I mean, on a small level, the fire department took over restocking of the medical cabinets. That's a savings of about $5,000 over what we were paying Cintas previously for that. Actually, the new emergency radio system allowed us, since it's microwave based. We previously had Verizon. We were paying them like almost $1,000 a month to provide coverage under our previous radio system. That obviously no longer exists. That was about mid-2020, in fairness, as to when that came came online. So those are two I'm thinking of offhand.
But it's those kinds of things, Gary.
You know, I've had a unique opportunity in reviewing and signing the invoices and the checks over the last 2 years to see where we're spending money. And a lot of it are things that we have to buy, and we have to pay the utilities and things of that nature. I agree that people are trying, and I think anytime you initiate a process improvement project, it's helpful. Even if you ask people, look around and see what you can do. You know, we spend a lot on paper, we spend a lot on copying, we spend a lot on, supplies, for restrooms, et cetera, I'm not saying it's not founded, but there's probably a lot of opportunity in every department to look at things and to try to figure out ways that each individual could try to reduce some costs. Now, incrementally, maybe it's not going to be a ton of money, but there's nothing wrong with asking people to always have that mindset. Particularly when we're faced with situations where we do have to pay consultants to fill staff positions, things of that nature. So I would just ask that people continue. What you've listed are good, but hopefully people can look ahead. You have a lot of smart people working here, and I think a lot of them are very dedicated to the township, and I think, maybe if we ask a little bit more, they'll come up with some ideas. So that's my opinion.
All right, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 874, establishing the 2022 Peters Township operating budget.
Second.
Any discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
5-2. Next item is ordinance adopting the 2022 Peters Township Capital Improvement Program.
So we've gone through this extensively. As I had said before, one of the things that is in here are projects that are being funded with money from the American Rescue Plan, including the upgrade to the wireless network. We're also using that money to fund work, storm sewer work. That is free, and that's freeing up money that the township would have spent on its own, and we're investing that money into the road maintenance program. So the road maintenance program is for next year, and probably for the following 2 years will be enhanced. In the projects for next year, as I had said previously, there are 3 projects that are waiting additional action of council. Those would be replacement of the pumper for the fire department, the construction of the fire station, and then the Rolling Hills Aquatic Center. And the reason why that Rolling Hills Aquatics number is less than $10 million is that we don't think you're going to construct the entire project. Even if you were to do it, you would not construct the entire project next year. So.
Comments?
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 875, establishing the 2022 through 2026 Peters Township Capital Improvement Program.
I'll second.
Discussion. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
2 nays?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 5-2. Okay, resolution amending the position classification plan contained in the Peters Township Employee Handbook.
So the next two items are actually related to each other. The first item for which action is needed is to amend the position classification plan. And generally, this is not something that we take action on annually. But as you will recall, we have been struggling to find a building inspector. One of the things that I think we learned the hard way is that our current pay rates for that position were not adequate to attract applicants. And I was talking before the meeting, we thought we had someone who was to start today. And last Wednesday, he gave us notice that he would not be showing up for work today, and that he has accepted a new position with his current employer. But that being said, what becomes necessary is to create a new pay grade for the building inspector so that his pay is within the pay range. So what we've done is to adjust the pay grades to insert a building inspector at 7 and move everyone who is 7 or below to a lower number. It doesn't affect their pay, but it affects what their grade number is.
I could just offer that I did ask Mr. Jarosky and Mr. Lauer about this because I did my little spreadsheet and wondered where the increases were, because when you look grade to grade, it seemed higher. So what Mr. what Mr. Jarosky explained to me was by inserting the grade, it just simply adjusted everyone down. My concern about that, or not concern, I would make sure that you explain that to the people so that when they look at the grade, the new grade, and they look at their old grade, they understand that they are not moving into a different pay level. So that'll mean communicating to everybody who did get bumped down a grade. I think this is something that, unfortunately, there's no easy way to fix things like this. So you kind of have to make changes as you go along. So I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 120121, amending the Peters Township Position Classification Plan.
Second.
Under discussion. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ordinance establishing the 2022 Peters Township pay plan governing full-time and part-time administrative employees.
So something that we do look at on an annual basis is the pay grades, the pay plan that is associated with each of the pay grades. What we had discussed before, and I think is supported by what is happening both national and regionally, as well as what you find inside of our existing labor contracts. We're proposing that the pay plan be adjusted by 2.25% for the upcoming year, and that also be the cap on normal rate increases. So it's my recommendation that the council adopt Ordinance 876 establishing the 2022 pay plan.
Well, none of you will be surprised to know that I think this isn't necessary. I do realize we're in a situation where there are a lot of issues around staffing and salaries related to staff. We've done this every year practically that I've been on council, and I've maintained every year that it's not an annual need, so I will be voting no.
Any comments?
We have a motion?
Motion?
I'm all out of motion. Somebody
I'll
else
move.
make a motion.
That we pass the ordinance establishing the 2022 Peters Township pay plan covering full-time and part-time administrative employees.
Second.
Here, Bob, okay. All right, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Consideration of salary increase for township manager.
It's on the main side.
It's not on
It's the last page.
that's the last page each.
And what I'm requesting is a 2.25% salary increase. That is in line with what the is been afforded the police and public works union. It's less than what the firefighters are receiving this year, and it's in line with what most administrative employees have received.
See, this was discussed at the last meeting, so we'll accept the motion.
You know, I will move that we agree to a normal wage increase be capped at 2.25% in 2022. And this is based on the fact that Mr. Lauer has told us that he evaluates on performance, and some people get less than that on a routine basis.
Is there a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, payroll and bills.
Yeah, but what that was something different than a pay raise for the township manager. So
I was wondering about that.
Yes, so
I'm
I
sorry,
will ask
I
once
thought we
again.
needed a motion for that.
Oh, I assumed that was incorporated in. That's fine. We can do that.
That's in the motion, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, payroll and bills.
Mr. Chairman, this meeting, we are approving 2 payrolls due to the gap week without a meeting. Pay for November 26th was $391,000. Pay for December 10th was $386,000. Accounts payable for the past 3 weeks was $1,185,000. The largest payments were a combined total of about $943,000 to, I'm sure you can guess, Liberoni for the Rolling Hills Park and street paving. I move to approve these as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any correspondence? Anything we need to talk about there, Paul?
Paul, that well thing, they're not building that here. That's from the joining.
Oh, it's McDonald, PA.
Why do we get that?
Because we're within a
Because
certain
they
radius.
notify everyone, and what we have been doing, as a matter of course, is anytime we get a notification to let council know. So some of these are closer than others. None of them have been in Peters Township.
Are we still getting a royalty on our leases?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
It's actually gone up.
It should be
Yeah.
going up because I talked to a client of mine.
More money we
Last
can
month's check was a lot smaller than this month's check.
Yeah.
So it must have went up a lot.
Well, it depends how small last month's check was.
Well, from the look on her face, I can tell you, it was a large increase.
I stretched their acres a little. Okay, anybody want to talk about the minutes of any of the board meetings?
Well, did we pass over, or are we not going to discuss the December 6th, 2021 letter from the Commonwealth?
It's coming up.
Well, I was going to do that under miscellaneous, so.
Well, I took it under correspondence.
Okay. So you have a letter from the state of Pennsylvania announcing an award of a grant to Peters Township for $2 million under the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program. The reason why, and next Monday, Representative Mahalik is going to be here because, quite frankly, where Ryan put together the application, the fact that you received these funds has more to do with her efforts than anything that we have done here. And but the reason why I put this in here today is that upon receipt of this letter dated December 6th, a clock is ticking, and we have 30 days to respond as to whether or not we will accept this grant. So we either need to take action on this at our next meeting, or you need to take action at this on the reorganization meeting. And if you accept this grant, what you're saying is we're moving ahead with the aquatic center.
And what happens if we accept the grant and then don't move ahead with the aquatic center?
Well, I think where you run into a problem, if you reject it or if you accept it and don't follow through, I think you run into the same problem. You'll never get money out of the redevelopment assistance program, and it may well it may well create problems for other grant applications with the state of Pennsylvania.
Paul, are we locked in on a price point on the aquatic center? In other words, if we scale it back to a $3 million center, are we still eligible for the $2 million?
I would have to go back and look at the application to see, to be able to answer that question.
You'd never be able to break ground on it in 6 months.
Well, one of the things that I'm trying to attempt to do, and I don't have the answer on this yet, is to understand if you accept this, when do you have to break ground? I don't know that yet.
It says in there 6 months.
No, doesn't that mean, well, I read it differently. I thought it meant you had to put it out to bid in 6 months. I didn't think actually you put a shovel in the ground.
Let me just tell you a little bit how these work, because I've been through a couple of them. You will establish a contract with the redevelopment authority, who is the administrating agency for these. And then in that, you work a timetable on the development of the thing. And then they establish ratios of spending, how much money you put into it and how much money RACP puts into it. It's a reimbursement account. You don't get the money up front. You get it as a reimbursement for what you spend. And there's a ratio of some kind. I forget exactly what the formula is, but ultimately you have to spend a certain amount to get a certain amount back. And you can't do a $2 million project and get all this money back. It has to be, 4 or 8 or something like that to get this money reimbursed. So I don't know whether that answers your question, Gary, but you have to spend more than $2 million.
Well, yeah, I understand. It's an elaborate thing. You will fill out lots and lots of reports.
Yeah.
You will get to know your redevelopment people very well. It gets audited regularly. You will get to know your auditors very well.
But Dave, why would we worry about construction beginning on the project when we've already authorized Liberoni to begin the site work?
Site work's all completed. But that's not what this is. This is a grant for the construction of the aquatic center.
Right. Yeah.
But part of the construction can't happen until the site work. I'm just asking about the begin construction within 6 months. To me, technically, could be
We've already done
defined
that.
as starting already. Personally, I haven't been in favor of this. I think if a decision has to be made, it should be made by the new council people.
When you say beginning construction, design counts as construction.
So we're well on our way.
So you'll have to work carefully with redevelopment on the definitions of everything. It doesn't mean you have to start building things in 6 months.
So what we're saying then is if we vote to accept the grant, we're not necessarily locked down. I mean, I understand that if we don't accept this money and don't start building, we'll probably never get money from the state again. But I mean, when they give you this 30-day window here, and of course they have to do this on the 6th of December, which means, of course, they do it right around the holidays, which of course, not that was done on purpose or anything like that.
And the other thing is for any grant that's actually going to a municipality, they're putting it right over top of everybody's reorganization.
Right. So again, if we were to vote to accept, if we vote to accept it and we don't build it, we're not going to get penalized other than beyond just never getting another grant again.
Well, and you have to, one of the things that occurs after you accept it, they begin the process of putting together the grant agreement. So that's got to come back to council because, I don't have the authority to sign that without it coming back to council for action.
How much have we received in these types of funds in the past for projects?
Only once have we received money, and that was $250,000, I believe, for the rec center. This is by far the largest grant the township's ever received.
What I'm disappointed in is that we had the opportunity to seek those rebids. And we didn't. And I think that the administration, dropped the ball here, because the administration should have known that we were going to be on a short chain once this got approved. And we knew it was coming this year.
Oh, but Frank, I'm going to disagree with you. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the redrawing in preparation to go out the bid has only been there for the last 2 weeks. Wow. That was council's decision when to go back out and authorize the redrawing of that. So 2 weeks ago, we could have gone out the bid, but I don't know how that changes this. We didn't know when this is coming in.
Part of the problem with that, though, we asked whether or not we were given new operating expenses, given new ideas of what the fees would be. You told us that they had not developed that yet. I don't think you agree to one thing without knowing the other. I mean, the operating fees for the aquatic center are going to be something that will determine what the decision is about moving forward or not. In my opinion, they should be. We just talked now about how the operating expenses are going up. That's going to be a big chunk, and we don't know that number. And I don't know when we will, but I think it needs to be prepared so that people have a legitimate idea of not only what it will cost to build, but what will it cost to then operate.
And I think the only way to know that number is to have serious engagement with the groups that potentially would be managing the pool. And I don't know how you ask them to do that when it isn't clear whether the township's going to build a pool.
I'm sorry, I thought Kimmel Bogret gave us a proposal, aside from the idea of a consulting company, of what they thought the fees would be, the management costs would be, and all that jazz.
And you have that from
before this whole salary debacle. You know, the way the salary is, salaries are going up. I'm not
so much concerned about that.
Yeah,
I'm more concerned about what this thing is going to cost to build. Because I don't see how you can commit yourself just because somebody's going to give you $2 million if you don't know what the ultimate price is. And if they know that they got us, plus, they're not factored in inflation at all, right? And once this hits the paper and once it gets out, you think those bidders are going to try to get the lowest bid they can give us? Heck no, because they know we're going to have to be committed or turn it down.
Well, no, because if we vote to accept the money, we're not, we can still always walk away from it. If we don't accept it within 30 days, the money's gone. I mean, we can vote to accept the grant.
Yeah, but I think you'd be better off giving them the money, telling them no, and let them give it to somebody else than to string them along.
And that's a prudent course of action for the residents of Peters Township?
Tell them no, you'll never see another grant.
I don't see how that makes sense.
Why do you say that? We've applied for the grant. We've had people go through the mechanism of getting this grant. Wow. And if you say
it's
no,
a wonderful opportunity.
Well, what's going to happen if we get a price and nobody likes it and we turn the grant down? Then we're never going to get another grant.
Well, you'll be in that. You may be in that
right,
again, but at least then it will be a situation where it is so over budget that you can't move forward.
And then you can justify not taking the grant.
That doesn't preclude.
But if we don't take it now, we can always say, like, we bid this out and it comes back at the same price as it was before.
$20 million.
And then you say, okay, we just can't do it.
Well, if it comes back at something ridiculous, you can turn a grant down because you didn't get it.
Right.
But just to say, well, we don't want the grant, that's not going to go well.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that when you're given this narrow of a window, I don't see how you don't accept the grant and then let the situation play out, rebid the project, and see what it comes in at.
Well said.
That same argument holds true for voting on it in January with the new council people, in my opinion. I'm not going to be here next year, but the people who are going to be here next year are going to have to deal with the whole aftermath of not only this, but everything that comes afterwards. That's all I'm saying. If we have until the 3rd, do it then.
And I say we take action when she is here.
If I were you, I would do this as soon as possible.
Take action as soon as possible.
Well, let me do this. From what I'm hearing, I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and council can either take action or table it, I guess, or deny it at the next meeting.
All right.
All right.
Would you at least let us know when we have to know by, as far as, when you forfeit it if you don't break ground? Do you think it's going to be like,
I'm going to find that out. That's a question.
Yeah, because, I mean, if we're going to take the two and see what happens, I don't want to be in a situation where, we take it and then we find out we don't have time to bid and get all these numbers in.
I don't think that's a problem, because the reason I don't believe that, if you wanted tomorrow to go out to bid, you could go out to bid. The documents are ready to do that. We pre-qualified the bidders. We have bid documents. You could put this out to bid with the idea of an award on January, and you would have no problem meeting that timetable. I don't know that that's what we want to do, though, to be honest with you.
Well, this letter says we have to submit our application within 6 months of the day of this letter, so it'll be June 6th of, I mean, that gives you enough time to bid the project out and see what the numbers come back at.
Well, because if you send that out for bid now, I mean, construction basically closes down within 12 days. You're not going to get probably the response you'd like.
All right.
I'm telling you right now, by the time you get into special conditions, it's going to take you 6 months to figure out what those are. Okay.
I have one other item under miscellaneous. This is a request that just came in today. It is from Columbia Gas. They have a project to replace the gas line from Braun down to Old Oak. They have sought and requested from PennDOT authorization to work on Route 19 at night. They're looking for permission from us to do the same. If you look where this is located, up on this top section, you're talking about Wendy's down through those series of restaurants. There's no way to do this work during the day.
Is that the Goodwill up on top, the very top?
Yeah.
The Goodwill? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, there is no way to do this except to do it at night. And so it's going to be my recommendation to council to give them permission to work on that at night along Route 19.
So moved.
The landowners yet?
What's that?
Have they notified the residents?
I don't know whether they have or not yet.
They're not high on my list right now.
What's that?
You want to abstain
Yeah,
from this?
I wonder why.
We get a recommendation.
Do you need a motion for this?
I need at least a consensus of council.
I'll make a motion that we authorize it.
Second. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thought you'd abstain from that one.
Nope.
What's that?
Thought you'd abstain from that one.
Next agenda.
Excuse me, I had one question for miscellaneous. I wondered if Mr. Zook could bring council up to speed on the 1781 Club project. We talked about that, and the iteration of that has changed. And as a matter of closure, to kind of explain what is happening from what we originally talked about, may I ask you just to talk about what's happening?
First, the zoning hearing board denied the request for the special exception to expand the facilities, build a pool and pickleball courts. That was denied. So the new owners of the club came to the township with a site plan approval. They're adding 5,922 square feet onto the existing clubhouse. It's going to be partially for the pro shop and adding a restaurant to the second floor. That was a site plan approval. It went to Planning Commission in November. Planning Commission approved it, and they are ready to start construction. We have the building permit ready to be issued. They are going to be buffering the existing neighborhood, adding additional plantings, and there were some traffic concerns that came up. We had our traffic engineer study it, and it did not require an additional traffic study. They will be paying a traffic impact fee for their expansion of the clubhouse. That was approved by Planning Commission on their November 11th meeting.
Nice.
Thank you, Ed. Since it was a big difference from what we talked about, I thought it was helpful for closure. Thank you.
Do we have a executive session, Paul?
Just very brief.
Okay, we have an executive session on a legal matter. Other than that, we are adjourned.